Call the roll.
Mayor Wells is absent. All others are present.
Thank you, Angela. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a brief moment of silence? Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the March 26, 2024 meeting and the agenda of the April 9, 2024 meeting in accordance with state law and city council and housing authority policy. We have one presentation today by the Parks and Recreation Leadership Academy, and I would like to invite Parks and Rec Supervisor Christy McBride to share with us about the Parks and Recreation Leadership Academy. Take it away, Christy.
Hello, thank you so much for having us. I have some of my Leadership Academy students here with me today. I am Christy McBride. I'm a Recreation Services Supervisor here for the City of El Cajon. And this Leadership Academy, this is our first year running it for the City of El Cajon Parks and Recreation Department. This was opened up to all of our part-time staff, and they were able to apply for this program. The top 6 applicants were selected to participate. I have 4 of them with me here today that are also going to share a little bit about what they've learned in the academy. This academy was designed to give them a greater understanding of the inner workings of our department as well as the city as a whole. Almost every one of our departments participated, so we'd like to thank all the departments for participating and giving them a greater understanding of the inner workings of this city. Many of them are just about ready to take on full-time positions, but we did notice there was a little bit of a gap between part-time roles and the full-time roles, so we wanted to give them an opportunity to have both the leadership skills and the greater understanding to be ready when those opportunities present themselves for full-time. So we're going to share a little bit today about what they've learned throughout this academy. So this is a 6-week program that we put together for these participants. They meet once a week, again, for a 6-week series. On week 1, we focused on leadership styles. We toured all of our recreation centers and spoke with the supervisors at each site, talked about the different leadership styles and when they might come into play when working with the public, and how to adapt that style based on the situation or scenario that you're presented with. And for week 2, I'm actually going to bring up Asia, one of our program participants, to share what she learned.
Good afternoon. My name is Asia Aragat. Over the past 3 years, I have dedicated myself to serving within the Parks and Recreation Department, honing my skills through active engagement at Kennedy Park and through instructing classes within our instructional program. During the second week of the Leadership Academy, guest speakers Megan Blake from HR and Lieutenant Sprecko from PD delved into the intricacies of conflict resolution and de-escalation strategies. Since gaining a better understanding on these tactics, I have grasped the importance of managing disagreements and fostering enhanced communication, which will ultimately result to a better work environment. Given the diverse demographics served within the park, I frequently encounter instances of customer frustration. Thus, integrating the insights attained from these sessions into my daily interactions have been beneficial, both within the professional realm among colleagues and patrons, as well as in my personal life. At Kennedy Park, I have also confronted various emergencies, ranging from altercations to lost children, which I am now better equipped to navigate with composure and clarity, ensuring positive outcomes. And now I will pass it on to Dylan.
Good afternoon. My name is Dylan Garcia. I started with the Parks and Rec Department as a volunteer back when I was in middle school over a decade ago. And I'm now 4.5 years into serving as an employee over at Kennedy Center. I started as a Rec Specialist 1 and now hold a Rec Specialist 3 position. My theme was relationship building, and to explore this theme, we took a tour of all of the departments in City Hall. We learned from each department about how their relationships shape their work and how they are vital to team success for our city. And we learned that these relationships are what allow us to learn from each other and connect to our past while also focusing on building towards our future. We learned that all the departments have the same goals, and their different roles are what come together to let us achieve those goals. For myself, I serve as the lead part-time staff at my center, and I also work as a member of the logistics team who help put on events like Haunt Fest or 4th of July fireworks at Kennedy. And what I've learned in this Leadership Academy has really given me the tools to better serve with my current responsibilities and hopefully as a future leader in the city. I want to thank all the departments in City Hall for allowing us to come in and learn from them, and give a special thanks to Raul Armenta in Public Works, Sarah Diaz in IT, and Assistant City Manager Vince DiMaggio. They gave us a lot of really valuable insight and helped build us relationships from the ground up with them. And I'll now bring up Norma, who will talk about public speaking.
Hello, my name is Norma Jamil Araha. I have the pleasure of working for the City of El Cajon Parks and Recreation Department and Bostonia Recreation Center for 9 years now. And I have worked myself up from Recreation Specialist 1 to Recreation Specialist 3. I hope one day to become an assistant supervisor for Parks and Recreation for City of El Cajon so I can better serve our families and communities. During our 4-week, we talked about leadership readiness. We covered about public speaking tips and interview tips. So for me, I get so nervous when I think about public speaking, and I am super afraid because English is my third language, and also I got afraid people would not understand me due to my accent. So I have gained confidence of public speaking through the Leadership Academy, and having this opportunity is a life-changing experience. As Supervisor Christy McBride mentioned to us during the meeting, while presenting is a good step to have a mentor right there for you to know what you did and then how can you improve your presentation in upcoming public speaking events. Also, we learned some tips for interviews. What I learned, and I will move on to my interviews upcoming, is practice my interview beforehand, and also I need to put bullet points of what I did during my public speaking and then doing this Leadership Academy ship. And then also I have to memorize what I have done through the City of El Cajon as a translator for Arabic speaker and Chaldean speaker. And now we have also a bonus opportunity that we got through the Leadership Academy. And then we had opportunities such as being a Parks and Recreation March department meeting, which is originally reserved for part-time staff only, full-time staff only. And we also got to attend the CPRS Board Installation Award banquet on April 2nd, which connected us, Parks and Recreation professional across the county, not just City of El Cajon. We are honored to be here today as part of Leadership Academy experience. Thank you, and I would like to ask Ben to come up.
Hello, my name is Ben Slater, and I've worked with the Rec Department for almost 6 years now. I started as a Rec 1 at the Ron Rain Community Center and was able to work my way up to my current position as a Rec 3. During week 5 of the Leadership Academy, we covered safety and risk management. This was when we had the opportunity to take part in a tour of both the El Cajon Police Department as well as Fire Station 6. We were able to talk with first responders and truly understand their real-life experience revolving around the safety of everyone in the city and how they manage risks present in such an environment. We saw firsthand how much goes into ensuring the safety of the public, from the diligent dispatchers receiving calls for help to the stalwart officers and firefighters responding in turn to those calls. As we continued our tour through the 2 stations, it was amazing to see just how many resources and tools first responders had in order to help mitigate the risk of injury to themselves as well as others. However, after talking with many of them about what the best tool was, I found a common underlying theme. It wasn't their shiny new set of handcuffs or even the jaws of life. It wasn't even a physical tool. Instead, the tools they emphasized were in their mental tool belt. It was their ability to remain calm while actively assessing any situation and then communicating effectively to help prevent or resolve whatever issue they were presented with. This mindset was the key takeaway during our tour and made us realize that we also have access to these tools and just need to practice them, so we too can do our part in continuing to ensure the city staff and public remain as safe as possible. With that being said, I wanted to thank both the El Cajon Police Department and Heartland Fire, in addition to Captain Hayes and Lieutenant Spreco, for allowing us to have these insightful tours of their respective departments, and I'll hand it back over to my supervisor, Christy McBride. Thank you.
So we have 1 week left for our Leadership Academy, where we're going to be focusing on some critical thinking and problem-solving skills. We really wanted to help these young professionals be ready to take on the next step as it comes. But in the meantime, they're even more equipped to serve the public, and I think they've really gained a better insight on how to be really helpful to our community. And hopefully this has really helped them along their journey, as well as helping to serve our public here in El Cajon. I would also like to give a special congratulations to Asia and Ben, who were just recently recognized at the California Parks and Recreation Society District 12 Awards Banquet, where they both received 2 of the 11 that were given out part-time staff awards. So we have the best of the best working for us here in El Cajon. Norma was recognized for this award a couple of years ago as well. So we're really lucky to have people that really care about our community, and they're really invested, and we're really lucky to have them. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Chrissy. Council, do you have any questions or comments? Gary?
Well, I just wanted to congratulate all the speakers in doing a very fine job at their public speaking. You've got nothing to worry about. You're doing a lot better job than I could have done at your age, that's for sure.
Michelle?
Thank you, Christy, for the great report. And folks, you did a good job. I have a problem with my one and only language, so I can't imagine how it is to deal with 3. I really wish that every high schooler and college kid could take this type of training, because it would set them up for success later on in life. I didn't have that opportunity. I had to learn by trial and error, and I think you guys have been given a wonderful opportunity to hone those skills so that if you decide you want to live in El Cajon and serve in this capacity, you're already set up for success. You've got it. So thank you so much for your dedication and your time that you've given to the department and to the city, and I'm sure that residents who interact with you have a good experience as well. So thank you.
You've made a great choice in going through this academy process, and it's a great program that's been put together. What you've done is set yourself up for success for the rest of your life. Many times throughout life, you will come in competition for something with somebody else, for a job, for a leadership position of some kind. And often as a former employer who was interviewing, I looked for tiebreakers. I have 2 people who are equally strong. What's the tiebreaker? And your experience here makes you a tiebreaker.
You know, more and more, we got to say that our Parks and Rec department is a world-class department. I mean, you guys are stacking up awards constantly. Individuals are getting awards. We have a leadership academy. I've never even heard of that at a different city. So, Christy, great job. Tipping your hat to you. And Frank, excellent work. And to the, would you call them graduates or participants? Okay, almost graduates. These principles you're learning, and one of you mentioned you can apply to your personal life. I want to underscore how much these principles you can apply, not just professional life, but your personal life as well, to your relationships, being a father or a mother, being a husband or a wife. You're going to be able to apply these principles, and you're going to set your relationships up for success. I remember going to these leadership academies through high school and college, and I still have my packets from them in storage. And every time I do spring cleaning, I pull it out, and there's a couple little nuggets that I'll read. I'm like, that still applies. So hold that with you. And if you want to be a first responder, you already got the mustache for it. So just keep it going. Thank you again. Great presentation. That brings us to agenda changes. Staff, do we have any agenda changes?
Mr. Deputy Mayor, no changes to the agenda.
Council, any changes? Can we have so that brings us to consent items. Consent items are a routine matter enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or a person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item. Council members, do we wish to pull any consent items? Staff?
No, sir.
Perfect. Angela, do we have any speaker cards?
No speaker cards, sir.
Wonderful. Motion to approve the consent items?
I move that we approve the consent items.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Move in a second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
We're now at public comment. At this time, any person may address the matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authorities, or successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to these items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions. An item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do we have any speaker cards?
We do, sir. We have two. The first one is Brenda Hammond.
All right, come on down, Brenda. I like that San Diego Padres shirt.
And the Chargers,
I remember them.
Hi, Graham, Mr. Mitchell. Okay, good stuff today because it's not raining. That was such a beautiful presentation. Wow, I love how this younger generation is getting so involved. I see it all over East County, but this is wonderful. I can't wait for the summer concerts. I love dancing or bouncing for exercise. Nothing against the gyms, but I get really bored there. Anyway, the car shows are a blast. Can't wait. We can dance while looking at the bitchin' cars. Oh, can I say that word? Too late. Also, if you see people checking their cars and their homes to make sure that they're locked over and over and over again, they are just being careful, not paranoid. There's a difference. We all need to be careful these days, especially if your car is your house, right? Thank you to El Cajon PD and Heartland Fire for keeping us safe, and of course, the County Sheriff's Department. Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. Angela, next speaker.
The last speaker is Sherry Ashbaugh.
Hi, Sherry.
Thank you. My name's Sherry Ashbaugh. I'm a resident of El Cajon, and I'm here today to speak to you as a member of the California Native Plant Society. We have a local chapter here in San Diego. So I'll start by saying Happy Earth Month and ask you if you know what occurs during the third full week of April.
Earth Week.
Very close.
Earth Day.
Very close. Did you know in 2011 that the California State Legislature established Native Plant Week? And that's what we have during the third week of April. It was established in recognition of California's globally significant native plants. California belongs to one of the world's 36 biodiversity hotspots. California also has more types of native plants than any other state in the country. And another interesting statistic, 1/3 of California native plants are found nowhere else in the world. So for me personally, as a biologist and an ecologist, those are some pretty important numbers. So I just wanted to let you know that this week our local chapter here is doing a series of events during Native Plant Week. We're actually adding a day on the beginning, on the 12th, and an extra day on the end. And we are doing local events to do public outreach to the community, and that is one of my duties as a board member for the local chapter. I'm the Public Outreach Committee Chair. So I spend a lot of time going to Earth Day events and street fairs and events like that to basically educate the public about the values of native plants. So we're doing a series of different events starting Friday, April 12th through the 21st. You can find all that information on our websites. And also at the state level, they're doing some activities as well. The state level activities are geared to a little bit of a broader audience. They're not as specific for activities that we do here in San Diego, but they have a lot of really good information. At this point in my career, after 32 years in the field, I'm pretty particular about the organizations that I sign up for, and the California Native Plant Society does impress me, and my standards are pretty high. So I just wanted to let you know that. If you'd like any more information, please visit our website. All of our activities are posted there, and if you're interested, I brought some information for each of you, and you can take that home with you. Thank you.
Sherry, thank you so much for your presentation. I sit on the San Diego River Conservancy Board, and it was an education learning how important native plants are and how detrimental non-native plants are to our area and our ecosystem. So I appreciate the work that you do. Any more speaker cards?
No other speakers, sir.
Wonderful. There are no written communications and no public hearings on today's agenda. We do have 3 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 6 is a report for hire vehicle services, and we're going to have our city manager, Graham Mitchell, introduce this item.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, members of the City Council. Vehicles such as taxi cabs or charter vehicles are required by state law under the State Vehicle Code to comply with certain regulations. And right now, under an agreement that the city has with MTS, they provide that service for the city. They also provide it for the cities of Chula Vista, Imperial Beach, La Mesa, Lemon Grove, National City, Poway, and San Diego. And one of the benefits, and I asked about this to understand what was the benefit to the city, and I found out that the big benefit is to our taxi cab drivers, because if they were to have a El Cajon license only, and we were to handle all the regulatory regime for that, they would still then have to go get the MTS permit if they wanted to operate in Poway or National City or Chula Vista. So it makes a lot of sense for us to renew that agreement, which comes to an expiration at the end of this fiscal year on June 30th. Staff would recommend that the council consider the resolution that's before you today, approving an extension, a 5-year extension of the existing agreement with MTS. And staff's here to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Appreciate it, Graham. Council, do we have any questions or comments? Angela, do we have any speaker cards?
No speaker cards.
Seems pretty straightforward. Housekeeping, is there any discussion, or someone like to make a motion?
I move that we adopt the next resolution approving a 5-year extension of an existing agreement with the San Diego Metropolitan Transit System for hire vehicle regulation.
Move in a second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Wonderful. We have item 7, which is ARPA funding project update, and I'll ask staff to introduce this item. Ryan, awesome. Thank you.
Alrighty. Hi, good afternoon, Deputy Mayor and City Council members. My name is Ryan Villegas. I'm a Senior Management Analyst in the City Manager's Office, and today I'll be providing an update to the projects that are funded through the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. So a little background. In May of 2021, the city received approximately $30 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds from the federal government. These funds are used to assist communities coming out of the pandemic. There are restrictions on what the funds can and cannot be used for, and to date, there are 21 projects that have been funded through ARPA. And then some key dates to keep in mind that we've kept in mind. December 31st of 2024, the end of this year, is the deadline to commit all funds to a specific project. And then December 31st of 2026, so 2 years later, is the deadline for all funds to have been expended, or for all money to be spent. So this slide, first off, I apologize for how busy it is and all the information that's on it. Each of you do have a copy of it with you, so you can look close up at it, and there are some copies here in the chambers too as well. And before we go, I will be going through each line item to provide an overview of where each project is and where it's headed, and a few other things to note before I do that. Each project has been categorized or classified into a specific category, so we can identify how the funds have been distributed in different categories. The final column on the right, that's the projected totals at the end of this year where all funds are to be committed or expected to be committed to. And then also the first line item, economic development, you'll notice that the most recent allocation was $573,000, and that the projected total actually goes up. So where that comes from is the projects that are bolded, those are actually completed already and the funds have already been expended. So anytime that the allocation and what's been expended has gone down, that difference was shifted up into the economic development account. It's kind of like a hold account, so those funds actually have not been allocated. So a little bit later on when you all have your discussion about where we should place the remaining funds, that's actually the number that we'll be working with, okay? So I'll go ahead and go down each line item to talk about where each of those projects are. We already talked about economic development. ARPA admin, there's $12,000 there. The city is audited every year on how it uses ARPA funds, and there's a cost associated with that, and it is an eligible expenditure with ARPA funds to pay for that. So that's actually where that project is. The business grant program, that's the last round of business grants where businesses were able to either invest in their business for fixtures, tables, and other items. They were also able to hire up to 3 employees. And from that program, a total of 333 new employees were hired in the city of El Cajon, creating that many new jobs. And a total of 279 businesses total received grants from that program. And you'll see there that it closed out at $3.101 million, and so about $450,000 was moved up into that economic development account. Next, we have the business incubator. This is associated with the 405 East Lexington property that the city is working towards for the small business incubator program. The business facade or the sign grant program, that program is open currently and is accepting applications. As of actually just an hour ago, we have 29 sign applications, 6 paint applications, and 3 window grant applications in. There's $500,000 budgeted for that program, and we are accepting applications through May 1st, and all businesses will be pre-approved by the end of May. We have a business license assistance. This program assisted businesses with renewing their first round of business licenses after the pandemic, or coming away from the pandemic, and a total of 2,077 businesses across the city benefited from this. And then next, we have cool zones evacuation site upgrades at the recreation centers. This is to upgrade the HVAC systems on our recreation centers, and so that ideally the goal is that they can all become evacuation centers, sites as needed, and so that's the goal with this program. Dollar Days is next. Yes. So Dollar Days, which is a successful program that closed out this past fall, that offered dollar recreation programs as well as $5 aquatic programs at Fletcher Hills, and so that program closed out this last fall. As you see there, just under budget. Let's see. Then we have El Cajon Foodie Fest. That was a successful program in the fall of 2021, assisting businesses to rebound from the pandemic. Naturally, that was a successful program, and it's now been, it's still alive in Americon Main Street, so that's a part of that every year. And park amenities. Park amenities is the pickleball courts over at Wells Park. A recent update was provided to the council, but as a quick recap, landscape architect is now on board, and the designs are expected to be completed, and a contractor is awarded by the end of the year, and the courts are expected to be completed by mid next year. The aerial platform truck, this is for Heartland Fire. And this is a combination of ARPA funding, the $1.28 million there that you see, as well as approximately $400,000 for the purchase of this aerial platform truck. It's already been purchased, and it's expected to be received by the city in the spring of 2026. And let's see, city network and cybersecurity. This addresses the deficiencies in cybersecurity through the following initiatives: by replacing aging network equipment and restructure infrastructure into new data center, procures tools to help protect the city from cyber threats, upgrade the video management system to better identify and respond to physical threats at city locations, and also AV audiovisual upgrades at public safety rooms to incorporate new tools into planning, training, responding, and recovering from threats to the city. The timetable for this project, the data center has been built. Network switches at the Public Safety Center have been installed, and City Hall is being worked on as satellite locations this summer, and then final purchases are also planned for this summer. For digital radar signs, the signs have been installed throughout the city and to curtail racing and speeding on public roadways. The program closed just above $82,000, and the residuals were sent over to the Economic Development Hold account. And for expanding broadband, this is to install fiber at Fletcher Hills, Bostonia, Kennedy, Renette, Ronald Reagan, and also fire stations number 7 and 8. And the timetable for this is that the fiber installation will be this summer, and final purchases and contingencies also late this summer. We have the LED mobile screen wall. This is for the large mobile screen wall that you've seen. Most recently, it was used at at Wells Park during the World Challenge to have the most dogs viewing a movie, and I believe Beethoven was projected onto the screen, so some of you may have attended that, so it was used during then. So that's already been purchased, and the residuals moved up to economic development. And we have the solar battery project. This project is to put battery storage system on the Public Safety Center, as well as solar panels on the parking lot right outside here between City Hall and the Courtyard Marriott, so that will provide that power as well as some shade structures for parking too as well. And then we have street beautification. This is the beautification along Oakdale Avenue, along with the alleyways adjacent to North 2nd Street and Walter Way. This includes new street lighting and landscaping, and then the contracts for beautification along Hamishaw Road and other parts of North 2nd will be awarded this fall, and the replacement of the monument sign on El Cajon Boulevard and other beautification at other entry points to the city as part of this project. Street camera system. This project involved the purchase of the flock cameras that are used by the El Cajon Police Department, which have been very successful, and assisting the city in locating stolen vehicles in and around the city. For the emergency homeless sleep cabins, these $25,000 supported Amicas and the construction of the tiny homes over at Meridian Baptist Church. And the vaccine hotlines. The vaccine hotlines when vaccines first became available early on in the pandemic, the city opened a hotline to assist residents in locating vaccine locations that are near to them. And then once the city realized that other services were available to assist residents, then the city folded up this program here. And finally, the Wells Park emergency renovations. This project upgraded the restrooms at Wells Park this past year, and which came in well under budget, and so those residuals were also moved up to the economic development account. So, again, going back to the economic development, so the funds that are uncommitted is that $1,794,922. So again, the key dates to remember is that these funds all must be committed, like to a specific project, whether that's to purchase something or just to a long-term project, but by the end of this year, and all those funds must be expended by the end of 2026. Another couple of things to note, though, too, is that one of the other agenda items earlier at today's council meeting was for an IT project for AV upgrades. Was for about $150,000, and there are some other projects in the pipeline there. And so the actual uncommitted funds projected is approximately $1.5 million, but generally speaking, though, that is the funds that we have to work with. So with that, if you have any questions, the recommendation, the City Council received the report on the progress of the American Rescue Plan Act funds and provides feedback on remaining uncommitted ARPA funds. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for breaking that down for us, Ryan. Excellent report. Council, do we have any questions or comments? Michelle?
Okay, Ryan. I see that we have the 1.7 uncommitted funds, and there were two things that I wanted to find out. One was the digital radar signs. If something were to come up and there was a group of residents or, say, myself, and we needed a radar sign on my street, can we commit to buying more radar signs with that with those funds.
So if the project,
Well,
go ahead.
Mr. Vegas, yeah, I think right now, yes, for sure. Anything that's on this list right now, we can continue to do more of those things. The question is how to allocate that. I'll jump in right here, if that's okay, Mr. Villegas.
Yes.
But with the $1.7 million residual, we're gonna be bringing an item forward to the next council meeting to figure out how to pay for a fire engine.
Right.
I would recommend to the city council that we utilize this funding source, not general fund reserves. As you can see, we spent $1.2 million on the last engine. Since that, the chief tells me that it goes up every quarter, a certain percentage. So we're probably looking at least at $1.3 million for if we were to order today. And then it's probably about another $100,000 to outfit. So that's about $1.4 million. Right. So that's leaving us about $400,000 in other money. There's a couple things that you may want to consider. And I think, and Ms. Mitchell, as things work really well on this list, those are really easy things to do because we already have things lined up. Mm-hmm. It's easy to go buy new stuff again. But one thing that you may want to consider is I think that the facade sign grant is going to be popular, and we may actually have more applications than we have money for. And so potentially expanding that by another $100,000 may be useful, or using some other things for some really easy, low-hanging redevelopment money or economic development funds. But as Mr. Villegas explained, those monies have to be spent like soon, right? And we have to have them committed. So little things like that are easy to do, but we would recommend putting the majority of it towards fire engine type stuff.
Okay. One other question. Did I read somewhere in the agenda that we had the dugout roofs collapsed during the last storm? Is that going to be part of the Wells Park emergency renovations?
So my understanding with the Wells Park renovations, that specifically was for the restrooms there.
Right.
And so that project is currently complete. So I can come back to you to confirm. I would need to look through the ARPA stipulations to see if that project specifically is eligible, but it may be something with the residuals left over.
I was just curious if we were considering it.
Well, the other consideration is to be an ARPA qualified vendor. There's a lot of hoops that one must jump through, and so the fewer purchases, the better. So on those smaller types of projects, we would probably not recommend using that source of money because there's a lot of things that are entailed with that. So we're thinking bigger projects. Paving projects is another possibility we could use money for, ARPA money for, that are easy hurdles to clear when it comes to the actual expending of ARPA money.
Thank you. Understood.
Steve?
Thank you, Ryan. Very thorough presentation, how to get a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. Good
you.
job. I've got some questions. Let's see. The business grant program, which allocated 3.5, but we only used 3.1, that indicates we weren't fully subscribed, that there wasn't enough interest, that not everybody used up the money. Is that what happened?
Possible. It's possible. We did during the year and a half, I would believe, that we accepted applications. We did sound out a few reminders, if you will, that these funds are still available, and so it did appear when we decided to close the program, that the applications were far and few between. And we had, even with that program, we did expand it a few times, such as expanding it to the nonprofits and to the home-based businesses with other conditions for those applications. So we did feel that we had, it had reached its limit or its peak as far as interest.
And the method of communication of the public would say, did you make a good faith effort to communicate to everybody that this was available? Tell us some of the type of communications you did.
Sure, absolutely. So we sent it out through all the social media platforms that we had. We utilized the business license email database to notify every business that met the qualifications for the grant program. We had flyers that a few of us had gone out to businesses all over the city over a month period of time to distribute flyers to notify businesses if they had any questions about it. So we had many means of socializing the program.
Okay, great, thank you. On the business facade sign grant, you said all businesses that are pre-approved will be notified by such and such a
Yes.
date. So that means all eligible businesses, not
Correct.
every business
Correct.
that applies.
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. Don't want to have an expectation
Sure.
for those applying that they're going to get a grant automatically. Okay, number 4, the aerial platform truck. We took $400,000 at the time, I think, from general reserves. Can we take that $400,000 from the 1.8 econ development pool instead? That aerial platform truck 6, it was like 1.7, and we were going to use 1.2 from ARPA and like 400,000 or 500,000 from general reserves. Can we?
I don't know if we can.
Or has it already been spent?
I think it's already been spent.
Okay.
So I think that's
Case closed.
out the gate.
Okay, sounds good. The digital radar signs, are these the signs that say your speed is and then the
I would
speed
have
limit?
to defer to our police chief.
Digital radar signs that we bought. Are those that says your speed is and then that and the posted speed limit? Yeah, the blinking lights. Okay, I have an idea that would maybe help with some of the speeding in town. We have those sidewalks that, I don't know what you call them, the active sidewalks, where somebody breaks a beam and the lights in the street flash for a sidewalk mid-block. And we have the digital signs that says your speed is. Boy, I would love to combine those two technologies. And when somebody is speeding, it activates those lights in the street to say, hey, attention, attention. Because sometimes you just ignore the white noise of something out of your peripheral vision, whereas the intent of the lights in the street are to say, hey, 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 you're going too fast. I would love to see a combination of those two technologies, and maybe we can use funds for those.
Thank you.
Number 6, the broadband for the fire stations. Does that improve the quality or reliability of the dispatch communications to the fire stations?
I'm going to defer to our IT director for that, if I may.
Yes, good. Thank you. That's all I need. Thank you. Number 7, the street camera system. That's the flock system. We also signed a contract for the license for the additional years. Is that something that we can use this ARPA money for?
So ARPA money is going to be the $320,000 that is allocated for that. Will be paying for the 2 remaining years that go up until that 2026 deadline, and then thereafter, I believe the following year, the subsequent year or 2 will be coming from, I believe, this general fund.
Okay, but when we get closer to the end of 2024, and we're like, it's up to you to think whether you want to prepay that contract and get some kind of discount for prepaying, and whether that's a good idea and all those kind of things. Uh-oh.
I think the nature of the contract already provides a discount based on the fact that we have signed a 5-year contract, but we have the ability to not extend it beyond the 2 years. And the reason for that is you cannot commit funds of future council by this council. You can only go through the fiscal year. So we always have to have the ability to get out of that contract.
All right. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The Wells Park dugout, couldn't we consider including that in FEMA storm damage related reimbursements rather than have to go to the general fund?
I mean, we have to pay it out of the general fund initially, but we'll try to seek reimbursement for whatever we can attribute to the storm for sure.
Okay, great. That's my questions. Thank you.
Gary, do you have any questions? No. I'm just standing because my back hurts. Wonderful. I have a couple questions. So I'm sure there's a definition of commit funds. Is there a process to say we've committed funds to a certain group, and what does that look like, and how easy is it to pivot should we need to towards the end of the year?
So through ARPA, through the U.S. Treasury, I use the word commit here. They use the word obligate funds, and that's really just assigning it to a project, whether that be through establishing a contract or having really you're just committing it towards specific projects, and you're advising them or informing them that these funds are already spoken for and they're not going to be redirected anywhere else. They're not freed up for anything else. Okay. And so we have to establish that really, I would even say by ideally September, because we submit quarterly reports to them every 3 months, where we update the status of each project, how it's moving along in its timeline, and how expenditures and these obligations or encumbrances are moving forward. And they will send us updates saying, oh, you have this amount of money that's still unspoken for, not budgeted or not obligated towards projects, and we're approaching the 2024 deadline. And so that's really what committing the funds is.
So you're in continuing communication with Department of Treasury.
Yes.
And September is our last opportunity to really show where our funds are committed.
To be safe, I would say September.
September. Okay.
Because the final project, or so their quarters work in, so for July through July, August, September, those 3 months, the report is due in the end of October.
Right.
And so up to the end of December 31st of this year will be January of next year.
Got it.
And so just to make, it's better to be safe than sorry as far as being ahead of where we know we want to spend these funds.
Okay.
Commit them.
Okay. So this kind of leads into my next question with regard to, we have designated funds for projects, and I'm thinking street beautification and solar battery, and we have it's already designated. We have 2 years to spend that money, but as we talked about with the fire engine, costs keep going up. So my question would be, are we sure that these projects will be fully funded based off of 2024 budget and not increasing costs? Does that make sense?
We'll use the example of the fire engine. So we're going to bring forward, we can't buy a fire engine unless there's some money that the city council has allocated for that. So at your next council meeting, we'll be bringing forward the authorization to purchase the engine. Once the council gives us that, we'll go in, we'll put in an order, we'll have a purchase agreement for that. Now that money's obligated, contractually obligated, so that's locked in. So
we're locking in the price too.
We're locking in the price as
Great.
well. And for example, I mean, the $1.2 million fire engine we just got, it would be more if we bought it today and the date of delivery. So as Mr. Villegas said, our goal is to have as many contracts lined up and signed by the end of September as possible for that very reason, because we have a feeling the federal government is going to start clawing money back as soon as January 1st occurs. So
and so that same strategy is going to apply to the cool zones and the solar battery.
Correct. Like we're opening bids on solar batteries next week or this week, tomorrow. So
okay.
Yeah, the goal would be then
we're
to
trying
have
to lock
that
in
contractually
prices.
Obligated. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, that's that. Do we know if there's extensions in case we do run into a situation if we lobby to our local congressman? Is that possible?
Not that I've encountered, and I've looked through all the resources that I've had thus far, and I revisit them frequently, and I haven't encountered that.
Okay, fantastic. Those are all my questions. Angela, do we have any speaker cards?
No speaker cards, sir.
I don't think we have to vote on this, but we need to give feedback to staff. So, do you have enough, Graham? Or I think the fire engine is something that I wanted to explore. I saw some nods from council as well.
Yeah, this is helpful, and as we bring as more of these projects move along, for example, when we're estimating that the solar bids are going to come in $500,000 less. They could come in even more less, or they could even be more. So that number is going to fluctuate as we continue to flush these projects out. So I wouldn't recommend we commit every dime right now, because I think we want some of that leeway. But I think we need to have some things that we can spend last minute if we need to. And I'll tell you what my recommendation would be. Let's say we have $100,000 left over, and we just got to find something to spend right now. Procuring something through ARPA is not an easy thing to do. Buying police cars would be something that I would recommend, and that would take some pressure off the general fund as we replace our fleet next year. So those are some easy things. So we're already contemplating easy purchases that would qualify for ARPA money. So when we bring you a final project or final report, we'll have those lined up for the council.
Wonderful. Okay, so staff has direction. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate the report. Let me see here. We're at 8. Last administrative report is a legislative report update, and that's going to be brought to us by our Assistant City Manager, Vince DiMaggio. Appreciate your work on this, Vince, with all of the bills going through. So let's not go through all of them, but some of them.
You ready for this?
No, no one is.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, members of council. We're at that time of year again where they've the deadline for submitting bills has passed, so all of the bills are moving through various committees. There are changes happening daily, particularly around this time of year because the committee hearings are happening right now. So I'm sure that some of the things I'll be reporting on today, where their status is, will have changed, and I will continue to monitor that. I do monitor that very frequently so that when we come back around, and I'll give you a status report probably towards the end of the summer before the final votes are taken, and then we'll do that final debriefing. So that's kind of what my plan is. So we've seen 2,124 bills submitted this legislative year. Over 400 of them are related to planning and zoning. And I have not obviously included all 400 of them. I'm not even monitoring all 400 of them. It's just, I just don't know where they are. I will learn as we go along where the hot bills are. But the themes remain the same as they have been for many years, which is a move towards statewide zoning as opposed to local control, particularly in the areas of land use, density, parking, all of the key land use controls that cities like to depend on and like to have control over specifically for their cities are being uniformed. We're creating a uniformity here in this state where everybody has one set of rules. That's not a good thing. There's absolutely no legislation to provide any kind of meaningful reform to Prop 47. Now, there is something underway. There's a citizens initiative underway that I will get to later that looks to repeal a good portion of Prop 47, but the legislators don't want to touch this at all. They're absolutely supportive of 47, and they don't want to go anywhere near it. And then lastly, it is an election year, and so some legislators feel the need to put sentencing enhancement bills forward. I'll give you an absurd example of one of those in just a minute here. So, yeah, let's get into the ones that I've chosen. These are just select ones that I've chosen. You have many more that are in your report. The first one, SB 1164, this exempts, as you know, ADUs are permitted in number up to 4 under certain circumstances. Well, this exempts ADUs from the property tax assessment for 15 years from the date of completion. Now, it's true we don't get a whole lot of the 1% of the property tax, but this would, as ADUs become more and more frequently enacted on various properties, local jurisdictions will lose that increment, that property tax assessment for 15 years. So this is a bill that's on the radar of the League of California Cities. They haven't come out and opposed it yet. They're shying away from doing that, but right now it's in committee, Revenue Taxation Committee. The next bill, 2274. This is actually a pretty decent bill. I'm familiar with something like this. It's called the sales tax holiday. It's done in Texas and probably some other states. But this exempts qualified school supplies from sales tax during the first weekend in August of each year. This is given again. I have city management experience in Texas. This is immensely popular over there. Again, I'm sure it's in some other states because it's so reasonable. I'm not sure where it's going to go, and so it's in committee right now. But all good things go to committees to die. So we'll have to pay attention to see if this goes anywhere. I promised you an absurd bill, and this is it, AB 3171. I assume Legislator Soria is up for a difficult reelection, and so this is a sentencing enhancement bill. But here's the deal. You have to be caught with 28.35 grams of fentanyl, which is enough fentanyl to kill 20,000 people. So no dealer on the street that you want to stop in your neighborhoods is going to be carrying 28.35 grams of fentanyl. It's just not going to exist. So it's a meaningless bill. It's not going to accomplish anything. But the legislator gets to go back to their district and say, see, I passed a sentencing enhancement bill, which doesn't have any chance at all of actually doing anything. SB 1494, this is a very important bill and affects us dramatically. This essentially prohibits sales tax agreements, okay? So if we have a sales tax agreement, no matter how long it goes for, it will immediately become null and void in January 1st, 2030. We have a number of these agreements in this city. So it's retroactive also. So if it's passed sometime during this legislative year, the retroactiveness of it goes back to January 1st. So say, for example, we or another city did a sales tax agreement that was effective January 1, 2024, that would become null and void immediately. And then any of those that predated that would become null and void on 2030. So very important bill. Again, the league is looking at this bill. They have not taken an opposition position on this yet, and it's in committee. I believe the hearing on this has already happened, and we'll see where it goes from there. AB 1794. This does make some changes to Prop 47, but it's in a way that I don't see it making a lot of a difference. They do allow an aggregation of multiple thefts at different locations that occur over a very short period of time, and if over $950, it's prosecuted as a felony. So it's got some nuances to it that I don't think are going to be very effective, which is why I said that there's no real serious effort at repealing Prop 47. Again, they're trying to make it look like they're doing something on this issue when in reality there's not a whole lot of impact. AB 2943, this is similar to the one we just talked about, but here this one is really interesting, is that it allows the aggregation of items that are stolen at different locations during a fixed period of time, a day, a week, what have you, but if they're not for personal use. So if it's a toothbrush or something that can be considered something for personal use, it does not qualify under this. If it's something that's obviously not for personal use, maybe it's a can of motor oil or something, I don't know. Then if it's over $950, then they can prosecute as a felony. So it's these kind of nuances that kind of the poison pill that are stuck into these bills that are specifically meant not to do anything, but the legislators get to go back and say, see, I did something to try and fix 47. It doesn't do anything. AB 1772, this again restates, this is for a Prop 47 bill that restates the felony theft for 2 prior convictions. So you have to have 2 prior convictions, but it's 2 prior misdemeanor convictions. So it'd be 2 convictions over the $950 limit, and then this would, again, it's a poison pill bill that does very little. SB 1416, this creates sentencing enhancements for property acquired through an act of professional organized retail theft. Basically, these are smash and grabs, but you would have to, again, prove that there was some organization to it. Now, whether that means social media, meet me at the Macy's so we can go smash and grab everything, there would have to be some sort of tie into an organized effort, and then it would have to be large scale, and large scale is not defined. So what a large scale resale operation is, I don't know. Some sort of fencing operation, I suppose, but it's not defined in the bill. SB 21, this would require a person who's convicted of crimes related to controlled substances receive a written advisory. So here's the scenario. The person is convicted of selling drugs. A person that overdoses on that, you're not trying that person, that you're not trying the drug dealer for murder at that point. So all this does is, once the person that sold the drugs is actually convicted of drug dealing, then they get a piece of paper that says if anybody is to die after your conviction, then you can be charged with voluntary manslaughter or murder. The thing is, the person has already died, right? If somebody overdoses on fentanyl, it's going to happen probably the day they acquired the fentanyl, not after months and months and months of trying the person who dealt the drugs. Again, it's meant to be meaningful. It's meant to appear meaningful, but the reality is it's not very meaningful at all. AB 2034. You'll recall that Senator Wiener last year made it, you could no longer look at someone and make a determination that they were loitering for the purposes of prostitution. You couldn't profile them based upon what they were dressed in. This is basically loitering. This is saying if you're loitering for the purposes of prostitution, that was also in the Wiener bill as well. So this is saying you can't judge somebody by their clothing, but if they're loitering and they're obviously acting as though they're trying to solicit business in that way, that it's reversing the Wiener part of Wiener's bill from last year. So it's a partial reversal of it, while still not saying that you can make that profiling based upon what they're wearing. This is a bill, again, this is by Wiener, so you can guarantee that if it's by Senator Wiener, it's going to have huge problems with it. This limits the ability of local governments on when they can collect development impact fees or other mitigation fees. Now, no one's having a problem with this, by the way. This is kind of a solution looking for a problem, but the bill limits the time you can collect these fees to when a certificate of occupancy is issued or once construction commences for the project that the fees are charged for. Development impact fees and other mitigation fees are typically collected at the time of the building permit. So it's always been like that. I'm not aware of anything that the BIA or any other special interest group on behalf of developers is complaining about. We do not have development impact fees. We have mitigation fees in certain circumstances, but not development impact fees. But this is just not something that is a problem. I don't know why Wiener is doing this. No one really can figure out what the motivation here is. He represents San Francisco or a portion of it, so there may be something going on in San Francisco. SB 1116, this allows people who strike to be eligible for unemployment. So again, this is not something that, this is essentially encouraging certain unions to strike, to mount a strike, as a tactic in labor negotiations. And if they do that, they would be eligible after 2 weeks of leaving work for unemployment for as much time as they're allowed to receive. So there are several that, and I wanted to bring up one other one that didn't make this list that the police chief made me aware of. It's going to be one of many that I get word on. It's AB 2923, and it basically lowers the standard, raises the standard for the type of complaints that are made against police officers. So a better way of saying that is it literally encourages false complaints against the police department or police officers. And the way it does that is that a person that makes a complaint, as long as it's not related to the underlying incident that resulted in their detention or arrest, if they made a complaint against the officer, that complaint, even if it was false, will not be prosecuted. It makes that complaint unprosecutable. So it's really strange. It just encourages false reporting, saying that the police did something to you when they didn't do anything to you, as long as it doesn't have anything to do with the reason for your arrest or detention. There are several ballot initiatives that I want to bring to your attention. Some we know have qualified for the ballot. Others are well on their way. The first one is the Homeless, Drug Addiction, and Retail Theft Reduction Act. This is the citizens' initiatives that I was speaking about. This does kind of roll back the felony charges for thefts under $950. And so this is reversing a lot of Prop 47. And the difference is that the defendants who plead guilty under these have the opportunity to complete treatment and have the charges dismissed. So it's something that tries to take a more compassionate look at drug use and abuse, but at the same time, it rolls back the $950 threshold. The second one rolls it to under. So the felony has to be a felony is over $950. And then, in this case, the felony could be prosecuted under $950. So it'd be to the $450 that we were at before. Yeah. California this is a really oddly worded one. California prohibits state limitations on local rent control initiative. This is simply the repeal of Costa-Hawkins. Costa-Hawkins was the act in 1995 that prohibited local jurisdictions from adopting any sort of rent control. This simply repeals that, and if it were successful, it allows local governments, local agencies, cities to adopt any kind of rent control that they see fit. The problem with this is it's got an undefined term in it, which is it cannot limit the land. Any sort of local ordinance cannot limit the landlord's right to a fair rate of return. That term, fair rate of return, is not defined in the measure at all. So it's almost guaranteed to be litigated if it were to pass, so that the term could be defined. And I don't know how you define that term, but that's where the stumbling block is on that one. The California 2/3 legislative vote and voter approval for new and increased tax initiative. I think the council is very familiar with this. It requires a 2/3 vote of the electorate for any new or increased tax proposed by local governments. So this goes hand in hand with the one right next to it, which is the League of California Cities answer to the above, which says if any initiative seeks to raise the vote threshold on taxes to 2/3, it itself must pass by the same majority requirement. So that seeks to overlay onto the first one, saying that the first one needs to pass by 2/3 in order for you to have any subsequent measures to require 2/3. So both of those are on the ballot, by the way. And that concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Vince. Council, do we have any questions? Steve?
Thank you. Thorough report as usual. I like especially that you put in the staff report, the city council may direct staff to submit letters in support or opposition, because that's what I'd like to do. SB 1494 was the sales tax bill. And I guess I'd like to ask my colleagues that we direct staff to send a letter opposing that bill, because we currently have sales tax agreements with several businesses in the city. And if those sales tax agreements were void retroactively, that business would come to us, if they're smart, and say, we just lost $1 million of value in sales tax sharing agreement. Who's going to make that up to us? And they're going to look to the city, which means the taxpayers of El Cajon, to make them whole. So I would say that this is an important one for us, especially that we send a letter in opposition, and I want to know if I have agreement among my colleagues. You're getting ready to say something, Mr. City Manager?
I was going to remind the council that our state legislators had forgotten that when they took away redevelopment, this was almost the only tool available. Very few cities, including El Cajon, relied on sales tax share agreements prior to redevelopment going away. We would rely on the traditional methods of redevelopment. So this is, again, the lack of vision or memory of our state legislators. I thought that may help punctuate your point, sir.
So I guess what I'll do with my colleagues before I go on to the next question, if it's okay, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I make a motion that the council direct staff to write a letter in opposition to SB 1494.
We have a motion on the table, first and second. Please vote.
Motion carries and unanimous vote of those present.
The second one, let's go back to the one about police officers and false reporting.
Yes.
A little murky there for me because you said false reporting can't be prosecutable.
Right.
So let's say somebody says to a police officer, you're arresting me for shoplifting. But Mr. or Miss Police Officer, I think you spoke to me in a very derogatory tone because of my characteristic. And you can fill in the blank what that is. The protected characteristics, we'll say. You're saying that can't be prosecuted?
That's an excellent example, and that's exactly right. That your example is unrelated to the reason for the arrest, and therefore, even if that's false, it can't be prosecuted.
So the police officer can't be held?
You can't. Yeah, it's confusing. So I make a false report based on your scenario that the police officer arrests me for, what was it again?
Shoplifting.
Shoplifting, okay. And I'm going to make a report that the police officer spoke to me in a derogatory way based upon one or more of my protected characteristics, even though they didn't do that.
Right.
So the report itself is false, and it's unrelated to the shoplifting. So you cannot prosecute the person for making a false report to police.
Okay. So in this case, the shoplifter can't be prosecuted for a false report against a police officer of something they may or may not have said.
That's right.
Does that false report complaint stay on the police officer's record?
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm kind of thinking it does. That complaints by the public.
Yeah, the complaints still remain in the police department's records, and we used to have a 5-year limitation on that. That's pretty much gone away. It would be, presumably there's an investigation that shows it was unfounded, and that would be reportable. So these types of reports nowadays become public records, even unfounded and complaints.
Okay. Those are my questions and comments. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a terrible law. I mean, we have enough trouble getting police officers, and they take plenty of guff from the criminals as it is right now. They don't need any more. So I think that warrants a letter of opposition.
Is that a motion?
I'll make that a motion.
Second.
Moved in second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Every year the laws coming down from the state make less sense, and a lot of them are unfunded mandates on small cities like our city, and we're required to acquiesce and follow the law, and it just creates more problems. And Steve, I'm glad you brought up SB 1494, the sales tax agreement. You know, with a lot of these bills that we would like to oppose, I'm sure we'd like to oppose all of them, but we have to be strategic about it, and it would be detrimental to attracting even more businesses in the future. It's not just existing ones, but we leverage the sales tax agreement with businesses to bring them into the city. It's unrealized income for the city, getting these taxes, and it helps these businesses get off their feet with the upfront cost of starting a business, which is massive in California. So not only would it create a problem with existing agreements, but it would halt a lot of our ability to attract new businesses. And I'm almost positive, Mr. City Manager, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of our car dealerships that we've attracted to El Cajon have sales tax agreements. Is that correct?
They do, and the those facades that you see were financed with those sales tax agreements. So that's why we don't have just lots with a shoddy looking dealership.
Right, and the sales tax from the car sales is a big portion of our revenue, and
what funds our public safety.
Yeah, and without that, we're forced to raise taxes, and the city does our best not to raise taxes by coming up with creative solutions to not raise taxes and encourage expansion of business. So, thank you, Councilmember Goebel, for that, and thank you, Councilmember Kendrick, for introducing those letters of opposition.
I think, Deputy Mayor Ortiz, if I may, I think the one thing that we say here every year that we do these legislative reports, and one of the things that I noticed, is I think it's important to bring up, is several staff members, myself included, are on committees at the League of California Cities. I happen to sit on the Public Safety Committee. And at a recent meeting of those committees in Burbank, I was very surprised by how the League wants to handle opposition to certain things. Now, when the city manager and I's career started in the early 90s, when the League said, they opposed a bill, that bill died. There was no chance that a bill, once the League of California Cities, gave it a no-go, it was the death sentence to the bill. That doesn't happen anymore. The legislature does not care what the League of California Cities thinks. And the legislature does not have, because it's a supermajority, there's no effective opposition party to stop some of the nonsensical bills. So we've got a combination that there's no check here that's happening with this legislature. This legislature is controlled by one party with no effective opposition, and then the main lobbying group for the cities that knows the best about whether something's going to work or not chooses to oppose something, and they don't care. And so the strategy now that the League has adopted is the League doesn't want to upset the author of these bills. So one of the things that I was just flabbergasted over is to listen to the lobbyists at the League say, well, we're not going to oppose. We're just going to take no position unless amended. Well, if I'm the bill's author or I'm a legislator that's considering voting for it, and I even care about what the League says, if they say no position unless amended, well, that means you don't care. I can vote either way, and I won't have any repercussions. You guys won't hate me. You won't love me. You won't do anything. I just don't care. So I think that's a very flawed strategy on behalf of the League. I think the League needs to come down and say, we oppose this bill unless it's amended. We support this bill as is, whatever. And they're just not doing that. And so there's this dynamic that's been going on for several years now, both at the League and then just the composition of the legislature. And that's what makes these bills so frustratingly nonsensical.
Yeah, and to your point, Mr. City Manager, we did, I believe, have a lobbyist representing the city in Sacramento, and that's an exercise in futility. Trying to change people's minds was ineffective from one city. And so the next best thing would be the League of California Cities co-opting and joining to push back on the state legislature on these bills. And I'm the representative for our city, and I'm questioning the value that the League of California Cities has. And I know we can't bring that up, but I think it needs to be said because, as you said, the League should be standing for local control, and a lot of these bills that you're talking about take away local control. And one of the references was with regard to development impact fees. Just because a section of California is having trouble managing impact fees doesn't mean all cities in California have problem managing development impact fees. And that's the nature of the League of California Cities, is you promote local control because the state is so big, it's so diverse. Coastal cities, mountainous cities, farmland, urban, suburban, that you advocate for local control because we know best for our cities. And it's unfortunate that the league has taken such a weak approach. So, any other questions or comments? Angela, do we have any speaker cards?
None, sir.
This is an informational item only, so we do not need a vote. There are no commission reports on today's agenda. Oh, by the way, thank you, Vince, for that comprehensive report. I know it's not fun. Next is activity reports, and Mayor Wells is absent, so we move on to Councilmember Goebel.
As reported in the activities, and I have just about a 60-second story of my interaction with the young man who's homeless. He's in his 20s. I was over at ECTLC this morning on a different occasion, and he was checking in. He was out at the sidewalk because he happened to be smoking, which you can't do as part of their thing. And I started just talking to him. What's your story? Why are you here? He said he just arrived here from Texas via Greyhound, via San Bernardino. And I don't know his story. He has a story. I don't know what his story is. He's in his 20s. He's very courteous, very poised. So I put him in contact with one of the big developers in town and one of the pest control companies in town that I know are hiring. So I think this man could be a good match. Hopefully he'll be on his own soon. I don't know what his story is. I said, how did you find out about ECTLC from Texas? He said, I Googled it. Of all things that attract people to our city, now we have to fight Google. It was the one thing where I wish perhaps we weren't at the top of the search results for in other states. Now, we welcome him here. We will take care of him here. He's in great hands. Hopefully be on his way soon. But there's an example of somebody from another state coming into to ECTLC. He will get good help, but perhaps there was some help for him in Texas. But again, I don't know his story. But I wish him the best, and I think he's a great fit for the two people I referred him to get on his own. That's my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Goebel. Councilmember Kendrick.
As reported.
Councilmember Michelle.
I just have one addition. I attended the Economic Development Council meeting this morning, and then as reported.
And item 13 is my activities report. One minor change. The Prop J survey recap was yesterday, April 8th, and not today, April 9th. There are no joint council member reports, no general information items, and no first or second readings of ordinances, and no closed session on today's agenda. So that brings us to the adjournment, the joint regular meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held on this 9th day of April 2024, is adjourned until Tuesday, April 23rd at 3 p.m. Thank you very much.